Hi, welcome to VNN. Today we have a very important guest on our show, MP Jasraj Singh Hallan, who is the immigration critic and shadow minister in the Conservative Party of Canada. He was elected to the House of Commons in the 2019 elections and represents the riding of Calgary Forest Lawn. Welcome to VNN, MP Hallan.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. I think, so we'll get to the point actually. What are the Conservative Party proposals to streamline the immigration application process so that all this large backlog can be tackled?
Yeah, so everyone knows, it's very well known that there is a huge backlog, almost at 2.1 million applications, and it's only getting worse by the day. We've seen complete mismanagement by the Liberal government on this, and we don't see that they're coming up with any solutions. We've put forward many different solutions to streamline the immigration system. I've been using the example of Amazon. So I think that we need to move to an online system, much like Amazon, so there's much transparency and accountability for the people that are applying. We know that the people that are applying are very hardworking people who don't always have time to follow up on their application. There needs to be transparency and a way for them to be able to keep up with their applications in a better streamlined way, and online is the best way to do that. We also feel that we need to move to recorded interviews. There should be accountability on the officer and not just a simple line that says, we don't believe that you're going to go back. There needs to be a lot more accountability in the immigration system. Under the Liberal government, there is no transparency, no accountability. The backlog is out of control. And on top of that, what we're seeing is that's causing, first of all, families who are separated for too long. It's causing mental health issues. Our economy is suffering. There's a labor shortage in this country that is not being addressed, and all because the Liberal government has mismanaged the immigration system. So we need to be up to date and fair with applicants.
And you think the Liberal government has failed, is it, in its immigration policies in many ways?
It's clear to see that. And, the fact is that when you have 4 different immigration ministers in 6 years, it shows they're not serious about long-term planning. And even if they are, no minister is doing a good job because the backlog is increasing, the headaches are increasing, the mental health issues are increasing. Our economy is declining because of the backlogs. So all in all, they have completely failed. And one missing part to this whole piece is the racism that's being taken place inside IRCC. That it's being unaddressed for 2 years. They've had an anti-racism task force. That anti-racism task force, in my opinion, has not accomplished anything. They have not fired anyone, and they have not reprimanded a single person for racist behavior. On top of that, the managers that did the racist behavior, they got bonuses. So they rewarded this behavior. And that's very bad on the employees and on applicants.
That's true, I know. Many say that the Canada's foreign students policy, it has sort of degenerated into an immigration scam, with mushrooming one-room universities and unscrupulous agents in Canada and in India and many other places too, abroad.
Look, the way we see it, international students are great energy, great for Canada. They bring new ideas, fresh energy to this country that's much needed. Of course, there's bad apples and there's bad actors. Yeah. We should not demonize the international students because we know there's a lot of, they leave a lot back home to come here. Mm. The parents who sometimes pay for their kids are doing unimaginable type of work just to be able to pay for their kids. We should recognize the hard work by international students. We should be helping support them to have a better pathway to PR. We should look at, in my opinion, we should be looking at the 20-hour maximum that they can work so that we can help avoid any type of, human trafficking or any type of abuses, right? We should be looking at how can we help those international students, because we know for a fact that they are almost like a cream of the crop when they come here, and their energy, their new ideas, their work ethic, we need that in this country because we need to help them succeed.
They are, we read reports and heard reports and seen also that many of them are being exploited, by homeowners, for their renting of homes, by employers with underhand cash dealings, or they're not paid properly. And in many other ways, and trafficking, as mentioned, there's a lot of trafficking. There are reports of that in Toronto also. So just wondering, I mean, how do we tackle this? Isn't it a police action or?
We need stricter rules. We need stricter laws. Under the Liberal government, they are very soft on crime, and it's to see they not only are soft on crime, but they're proving they're soft on crime. And I'll give you a few examples. Bill C5 is going to reduce minimum sentencing, and what that does is it enables criminals. It does not help anyone in any way. And this environment that the Liberal government has created, that even if you do crime, you won't have to do the time, it is letting more abuse happen because people know that there isn't that harsh of a penalty. We need to have a better system of being able to report without a fear of your employer doing something to you. We need better system in our criminal justice system to address criminals. We need to make sure criminals are given the sentences that they deserve. Victims should be at the forefront of our criminal justice system. All of this ties in together. This includes our criminal justice within IRCC, and we don't see it being addressed over the last 6 years.
Mhm. And, there have been reports that there has been high student visa refusal rates, particularly from Francophone African countries. I mean, I read a report recently saying the refusal rate is about 90%. I mean,
Yeah, in some countries, it's up to 90%. Places like Nigeria, there is an unfair disadvantage to those international students that are coming from places like Nigeria. And this goes to show how big of a failure the Liberal government is, because they have not addressed the racism within IRCC. And this is very clear to see by the high refusal rates of certain countries. They introduced a digital program called Chinook, and over again, the witnesses have said in our committees that the program Chinook was never consulted by anyone. The government introduced it, and after they introduced it, the refusal rates shot up in certain African countries. Again, there is an unfair disadvantage to those African students that are of Francophone background, because we know Quebec needs, and frankly, all of Canada needs more Francophone students. We need to make sure that our French language is also upheld. And so the fact that this is not being addressed, alongside with that really alarming report of racism happening within IRCC, those two things tie in together. Recently, there was some athletes from Africa that wanted to compete. They've already been to Ottawa before. They've competed in the Ottawa Marathon. And just recently, they couldn't come to the Ottawa Marathon this year because no one did anything with their visa. They sat on their hands in IRCC, and this is a failure by the government. And I asked the question, were they not processed because of the unaddressed racism in IRCC, or was it because the Liberal made backlog? And they had no answer on that. It must be a combination of both, because we see there is clear discrimination happening and it's unaddressed. There's nothing being done by it.
Is there a new conservative proposal on the family reunification program as it exists today?
Absolutely. The Conservative Party is a big believer in family values and being able to reunite families. We know strong family values in Canada leads to many other places where families can prosper. We need to be very, very clear that family reunification should be in the forefront. What do we see today under the Liberal government? Families being separated for many, many years. We've seen mental health issues. In my office, we hear about people who commit suicide or divorces happening because of the backlog in IRCC. My colleague from Dufferin Caledon, Kyle Seaback, put together a very common sense, very, very really good bill. And this is for the parents and grandparents. So as we know, the Conservative Party under Premier Jason Kenney brought in the super visa. That was for parents or grandparents to come here. And we know what that does. That helps people not only economically, but socially in the house as well. When you have a member of a family come in to help, your mental health is much better. And on top of that, one more person in the household at minimum can go back into the workforce. And so the previous super visa was for 2 years. My colleague has put a proposal to change that from 2 to 5 years. And on top of that, reduce the income level for that to be, because we know all sorts of people need help with it. And the people with lower income are disproportionately left out. And on top of that, we want to keep things competitive. So what we know is that, the rates of insurance in Canada can be very high for some people. So we've opened it up in the bill to make sure that people are able to get insurance from other countries as well. And, we are currently studying that in our immigration committee. The witnesses have been very positive on it. But this is another clear example that conservatives are always putting families in the forefront, and we want to tackle real life issues with real life solutions and not just words.
Has the bill been passed its first reading yet?
It's been passed in the House of Commons unanimously, and now we are currently studying it inside of our committee, and we're very confident by next week we should have it out of the committee back into the House of Commons.
Does this is there any clause about the expansion of the express entry program?
There has been talk, and express entry has been failed on many fronts. We believe in that we need, especially when we look at the labor gaps and the labor shortages we have a crisis in this country with labor. And it's due in part to the mismanagement by the Liberal government in the immigration system. We need better pathways. We need more common sense pathways. We need to make sure we're not putting any unnecessary burden and hurdles in the way of employers and people that want to come to this country. And so we need to have a better expansion, but more importantly, we need to have a better long-term plan of what we need. And how does this happen? Well, I think what needs to happen, what we're missing, is that the federal government is not talking to the provinces. The provinces have a better idea of where their labor shortages are and what they require. And I think that the federal government needs to do a better job of sitting down with the provinces and consulting with them, because they are they're very short on when it comes to consulting.
I mean, what does the party stand on this third country agreement, on asylum seekers? There's been a lot of talk about that.
Absolutely. Well, we are in favor of that. We believe that asylum seekers and refugees deserve to be able to have the dignity to be able to come to Canada in a safe and fair manner, as long as the checks and balances are there. We need to be able to give people, look, Canada used to be a country where we could hold our head high and be a pride of people that would help those that are in persecution. I myself have sponsored a persecuted family from Afghanistan. I did that in 2015. Under this Liberal government, it took 4 years for that family to come here. 4 years when they used to worry about their daughter being kidnapped, being raped, being converted when she was walking to school. And it took this Liberal government 4 years to get there. And this is completely unacceptable. We need to make sure that Canada is regarded once again as a place for safe haven for those that are being persecuted around the world.
I mean, this will the Conservative Party close this Roxham road border in Quebec? Thousands of illegal economic migrants have been coming through that. Many of them are quite wealthy. They come with expensive suitcases and expensive watches and telephones, and they just walk in.
You're absolutely right. And what is this doing? This disadvantages those that are waiting in line, following the procedure, paying all the fees that they have, because what's happening is that because of Roxham Road, the resources that are being used on Roxham Road is pushing those that are being fairly trying to come to Canada back in the line and longer in the line. And we need to have that. This is why our party has been very vocal on Roxham Road, and we want to see better reform. They need to do something about Roxham Road. It is disadvantaging those asylum seekers, those refugees, those family members who want to reunite, because it's shifting the resources to Roxham Road. We need to have a solution, and we've been talking about this for years now, and there's been no action taken by the Liberal government.
I mean, coming to there's Ukrainian and Afghanistan refugees coming into Canada. Does this cut into the sort of quota which has been set up by the government of, say, 350 to 400,000?
Look, they've failed on both fronts. That's what I'll say about them. We should, as an immigration critic and minister or shadow minister, I always say that the number of people that we bring into the country should not be politicized. We should not be politicizing that at all. Look at the process that's happening right now. People in Afghanistan are, in our opinion, they are not being given the right treatment by this government. The interpreters that served our country, that risked their lives, are being unfairly treated by the Liberal government. They're not getting any responses. When we should have been doing an evacuation plan for those Afghan interpreters, the government called an election. They had an election plan before an evacuation plan. And now we're seeing that there's been no responses by IRCC to them. They are being hunted by the Taliban. They're being persecuted by the Taliban. And there is no hope for them because the immigration system under the Liberal government is completely broken for them. Even when you look at Ukraine, the Ukrainians have been asking for visa-free travel. I and our party has been pushing for visa-free travel, yet the government keeps putting bureaucracy and more obstacles in front of people. We need to make sure, again, that Canada is held to a high regard around the world for a country that is accepting, and also that other people that are being persecuted around the world can rely on.
But even this, according to IRCC figures itself, there's the caregiver cases. The backlog has gone above, I think, 16 to 17,000.
Absolutely. Look,
Essential workers.
My heart goes completely out to those caregivers. We deal with caregivers every single day. This is another complete failure. The government is not being transparent or being truthful in what they're going to do with caregivers. There are files since 2019, 2018 that have not been opened. They're just stuck. And what this is doing is it's causing immense amount of mental health issues for applicants and family members. I have a constituent of mine who applied for this program back in 2019, and they desperately needed help. They have a child with severe disabilities inside the house. Her husband had to go back to India he had an ailing mother, and due to that, the mother was left here alone. The mother of this, child with severe disabilities was left alone. She was going through all sorts of pain, as you can imagine, and she didn't have anyone here to help her out. And this just goes to show that we need to have a better system. I feel so bad for those caregivers that are just stuck in this liberal-made immigration backlog, and it needs to be cleared up.
There was a question I think you asked during the question period in Parliament. I think I was here. Why would Canada attract the best and brightest, provide them with opportunities and training and knowledge, and then force them to leave? Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. There are a couple of different factors to this, and this is why I asked the question. It's hard enough for people to come here because of the broken immigration system under the Liberals. When they get here, they're hit with high inflation, high taxes, their high cost of living, the carbon tax. They're hit with all these things. There was a figure last year that came out that 50% of refugees are living in poverty. There are international students who go to food banks. And now there's a new figure released that there are people that don't stay in Canada more than 2 years when they get here. And it's because the government has completely failed economically. Investment is bleeding out of this country, and they put more and more hurdles in the way. Home ownership is impossible for a newcomer here in this country. And we all know that you just have to look at the price of the pumps. We have to look at the price of groceries. And what did the government do? Instead of helping Canadians, our Conservative Party tried to put forward a motion that they should get rid of the carbon tax, pause the carbon tax. They should help Canadians out. And what did they do instead? They raised the price of the carbon tax. They're not helping Canadians, they're making life more miserable. So what I keep saying is the Liberal government is so good at making so many people miserable, because you can't come here, first of all. When you're here, you're hit with all these taxes. And when you want to leave, you can't, because now the passport offices are huge lineups too. So everyone is stuck because of the Liberal government's mismanagement.
And what should be the focus of a country's immigration policy? I mean, is it just to meet the shortage of labor, or to replace the population, to get a wider tax base, or all these together?
All of the above. The government has failed. They have proven that they cannot handle a crisis and do everyday business at the same time. This government needs to tackle the backlog. They need to make sure that, because if we start tackling this backlog, then the labor shortages will start being fixed, and family reunification needs to be fixed. All the streams that they've put on the back burner, just like the caregivers, those things need to be fixed. They also need to fix the economy and get rid of these policies that are hurting our jobs and hurting our economy. Those things go hand in hand. They need to do all of the above, like I said, and right now they're doing none of the above. They are making life more miserable for everybody. Is
there any new motion or resolution that you are planning to table in Parliament on this?
Today, our Conservative Party is tabling a motion to ask the government to pause the carbon tax, to pause any type of taxes on fuel, and other things to help tackle some of these inflationary issues that the government created themselves by the high levels of debt that they've been borrowing money nonstop, it's hurting Canadians. So we're putting forward a motion that the government does some of these common sense solutions to help not just Canadians, but newcomers when they come here, and so we can help them to succeed. We continuously put forward common sense solutions. It's too bad that common sense is not so common within the Liberal government, though.
Thank you, MP Hallan. This is very interesting subject that you were dealing with now. And we have heard MP Jasraj Singh Hallan, who is the shadow immigration minister and immigration critic in the current parliament, give us an insight into this the policy of the Conservative Party. Thank you, MP Hallan.
I really appreciate the time. Thank you.